Okay, we are ready to begin. Thanks for everybody for being here. We have one council member absent, Todd Arbison, who's on vacation. Obviously, it's an excused absent up in Minnesota, where it's much cooler than it is here. Everybody else is here. We have a quorum. With that, we'll call the meeting, City Council special meeting of Thursday, August 11th, 2022 at 6 p.m. to order. And would you stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Please take your seats. And we'll open it up right away for item number 3, citizen comment period. Did anybody sign up? Okay. We will move on to item number 4, the consent agenda. These items may be acted upon in a single motion. No separate discussion or action on these items will be held unless requested by a council member. Public comment on these items may be heard during citizens' participation. However, that does not mean the item will be considered outside the consent agenda. Does anybody have any items they'd like to pull from the consent agenda? No. Okay. If that's the case, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Can I have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda passes. On to item number 5, business items. The following items are for discussion, consideration, and action. 5A, 2022 tax rates, review the 2022 no new revenue, voter approval, and de minimis tax rate calculations. With Nancy, who's going to review those for us. So what I'd like to do is turn it over to the expert, Nancy, and then if we need to have some further clarifications from there, we will do as such. So Nancy, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Okay, as you can tell by all the documents that were placed in your packet, we received our certified appraised value from the appraisal district, as well as the tax calculation documents that were prepared for the city by Comal County Tax Assessor Collector's Office. I've also included a little worksheet that's called the 2022 Tax Rate Proposal. As you can see, for 2022, our adjusted taxable value has increased to $944,220,025 over the prior year's adjusted taxable value of $831,667,419. The tax rate, there are 3 tax rates that were calculated by the tax office. The first one is the no new revenue rate. The second one is the voter approval rate, which is your no new revenue rate plus 3.5% increase. And then the de minimis rate, which is would add an additional $500,000 to the city's tax revenue. The no new revenue rate, M&O, maintenance and operation, that's a tax rate that funds general fund for the city. In the no new revenue tax rate calculation, that comes to 0.196784 cents. And the debt rate comes to 0.069472 cents. The debt rate remains constant and common through all 3 calculations, because that money is used only to pay off the amount of debt that the city is obligated to pay in this particular fiscal year. No new revenue rate would bring in $1,858,074 into our general fund. The city's proposed budget has $1,861,995 budgeted. Your voter approval rate brings in $1,889,299, which would be a $31,225 increase over what we have in our proposed budget. And then your de minimis rate brings in $2,321,592. The council needs to choose and make a proposal on which tax rate they choose to conduct a public hearing on and consider adoption of for our 2022 tax rate. No new revenue rate does not require a public hearing. However, your voter approval rate does require a public hearing. And the de minimis rate would require a public hearing, and it subjects the city to an election. Out of our adjusted taxable value, there's $412,426 that is still under protest. They have not resolved that, those values yet. Also, this number is not included in your adjusted taxable value because it is new value that was put on the tax rolls in 2022. And that's $7,260,819. My recommendation to council is that council consider the voter approval rate, which is that no new revenue rate, plus the 3.5% increase. As I said earlier, that rate would bring in $31,225 more in tax revenue above what we have budgeted in our proposed budget. I hope I didn't totally confuse everybody. Oh, one thing I want to add is the voter approval rate. If council chooses that option, that will be a decrease of 0.035586 cents from the tax rate that was adopted in 2021, and that is due to the increase in the appraised values. Because you are really only, what this is, these calculations are designed to where you bring in what you brought in revenue the prior fiscal year.
Thank you, Nancy. Council, any direct questions for Nancy after her excellent presentation? Jesse?
Of the 174 million taxable value that remains under protest, I remember seeing the number, but I forgot what's at risk there still. We could lose some of that, right?
We could lose some of that.
But not, yeah, but the majority is probably still, it's whatever's at, I think it was I forgot what the number was, but it was a small percentage, wasn't it?
Yes, it
Yeah, okay.
typically is a very small percentage.
Okay. And that's 174 included in the value?
Yes,
Yeah,
it
okay.
is included in the adjusted taxable
Okay.
value.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what I thought. Thank you.
It's an excellent question. Anybody else? Okay, so what the city staff, Nancy and Christine, are recommending to us is the voter approval rate, which is the no new revenue rate plus 3.5%. That 3.5%, so all these numbers are given to us from the county directly, and that 3.5%, basically, you times the M&O rate, not the debt rate, from this year times 3.5%, and you end up with the number they gave us at 0.200091. We don't change the debt rate because our debt to capital ratio has decreased, meaning it's better because we are very good as a city at paying off our debts and paying down the interest that we owe every single year. So our debt rate decreased from last year because we're good at paying off our bills and paying our debts. One of the advantages of when property values go up in a tax year, even with protests, one of the advantages is that the county can lower the overall tax rate. So while we still receive funds to make the county run and all the cities within the county continue to operate. So even though our mean property value went up by roughly, $70,000-ish, we have the opportunity to lower the overall tax rate from last year at 0.305 to this year of either 0.6266 or 0.269. I am with Nancy and Christine on this to go with the voter approval rate, no new revenue, plus 3.5%. I'm not in favor of the de minimis rate. That brings in extra money for the city of Garden Ridge. However, we end up raising the tax rate in a year that we don't need to do that. So I'm not in favor of that. Let's do a couple more numbers here. So we talked about the debt rate. We've talked about the maintenance and operations rate. With the voter approval rate, it does require a public hearing, which if this was approved, we would have in
August 29th.
August 29th to have that open to the public. Let's talk some numbers. So on the average value of a home in the city of Garden Ridge currently is $592,725. That is up from what we talked about, $535,638 from last year. Because the tax rate last year was 0.305, higher than what it is proposed this year, the average taxes paid on average home value last year were $1,634.49. This year, that would go down with the no new revenue rate to $1,578.17. If we went with the no voter approval rate of no new revenue plus 3.5%, you can see the number there. It goes up to $1,597.77. That's $19.60 for the average taxes paid on the average home value for 2022 by the citizens of Garden Ridge. What that does is bring in $31,000 more to the general fund, correct, Nancy?
Correct.
To help us. That's not a lot of money, but it's every little bit counts because we have a lean but very efficient budget that we come extremely close to zeroing out every year. We maximize the use of every dollar that comes in from ad valorem and sales tax and other areas. So we are very responsible as a city to our taxpayers and what we do with taxpayers' money. I think it is a fair and reasonable and responsible request of our citizens to pay, $19.60. It's still extra from the no new revenue rate with the voter approval rate to bring in that extra $31,000 for the city of Garden Ridge to keep everything going the way we want to over the next year. We could make it happen with the no new revenue rate. However, it would be extremely tight. So I recommend the voter approval rate, no new revenue plus 3.5%. And our overall taxes that we pay for the year still go down from last year. So we are lowering the tax rate, lowering what taxes were from the previous year, and that's a good thing for the citizens and residents of Garden Ridge while we increase our budget a little bit of $31,000 for the next year. Any questions for me and what my recommendation is? Nobody? Okay, great. So what we need to do now, if you guys are ready, and I know you are, we need to do a roll call vote for this. So which is easy to do, but we would need a motion to approve whatever rate, hopefully you say a motion to approve the voter approval rate, proposed, sorry, to the proposed tax rate proposal for 2022 for the city of Garden Ridge. We have to be specific on this.
Okay, I make a motion to propose the voter approval rate for the fiscal year, for the tax rate for 2022 tax year.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the proposed voter approval rate for the city of Garden Ridge for the 2022 tax year. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Place one? Aye. Place two?
Aye.
Place three?
Aye.
Place five?
Aye.
Okay, it passes unanimously with one in absentia. Thank you. Okay, the date and time of the 2022 tax rate public hearing and adoption will be Monday, August 29th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in City Council chambers, right here. Moving on to item number 5B, proposed fiscal year 2023 budgets for the City of Garden Ridge General Fund, Water Company Operation and Maintenance Fund, Interest and Sinking Fund, and Capital Improvements Fund. And B1 is Christine and Nancy to review. Before we turn it over to the two of you, just to remind council, this is the proposed budget that you adopted, and it's the original one that came out, and it doesn't have some modifications that we've gone through and made for some city employee salary adjustments. So what we're going to talk about right now for the public hearing is the original one that you approved for the proposed, and then once the public hearing is done, we will go in and talk about some adjustments that we've made with annual salaries. So, Christine, Nancy?
Just learn how to use the microphone. There we go. Okay. Thank you, Mayor. If you look at, I don't know what page it is, forgive me, the page after the resolution for the general fund. Basically, this is just a summary of the financials for the general fund. And I just wanted to point out the tax revenues for that include sales tax and ad valorem, we're anticipating an increase of approximately $170,000. That leaves us a remaining amount of surplus of $28,902. The unrestricted funds are $3,637,230, and then that gives us approximately 13 months of a fund balance. The next page is just kind of tells you where the money comes from and where it goes. The majority of the revenues that we receive are taxes, and then if you look to the next column on the other side for expenditures, you'll see that the majority of our costs are personnel, which makes sense because we are public servants. The next page you'll see is, forgive me, if you'll continue to the page where it says General Fund Administrative Expenditures. The majority of the expenses that increased this year are for personnel costs for admin. And this is across the board for all the departments. It was a 5% wage increase. Our medical insurances increased by 11.85%. Dental and vision did not have an increase. And then the basic life and AD&D increased by 6.5%. Short-term disability was 8%, and for long-term disability as well. And again, that's across the board for all departments. So for expenditures for court, the only increase that was there was for the judge's compensation. It was increased $100 a month, and that was to meet what other cities are paying their judges for their services. Then under the police department, Again, the salaries and everything are the same. The fuel costs, we increased $13,800 because of the cost of gas right now. We're anticipating it may not go down, so we wanted to be sure we had funding for it. And the police department has requested a new patrol vehicle to be purchased, and that would be $40,000. The next would be Public Works. And with Public Works, we have an increase in animal services, and that's just in line with the current, where we're at currently this year. That would be more in line with what we anticipate the cost to be. If you look a little bit further below for operational materials, there's an increase of $2,700. That's for soil, rocks, and other supplies that are required for Public Works. Again, the fuel line item is increased. It's increased by $5,300, anticipating that fuel costs will not decrease very much over the next fiscal year. Under maintenance services, you'll see that we're replacing tires on the backhoe, replacing vehicle tires for the other vehicles that are there. The park sound system, where we've added into the line item for Park and Recreations $2,500 for park sound system upgrade. For the general fund community center, the manager fees have increased from $12 to $15 an hour. Now, the manager fees had not increased on an hourly basis for about 3 years now, so that's not surprising that we're having to increase that. Under operational support for equipment, we're going to be upgrading the sound system and AV system within the community center. And then with the library, again, it's a 5% increase for all the personnel costs. And that was really the only increase for that department, with the exception of a minor increase for supplies. And that was to include, I believe, just items that she needed for the office, like paper. Then if you want to move on to the water fund. So under revenues for the water fund, we're anticipating the water sales to increase by about 9.3%, which gives us an increase of $10,872 for that line item. The unrestricted fund balance is $1,258,738, which gives us right now a 6-month fund balance for reserve, and you'll see it's also a balanced budget for the water fund. Then we've added again the where does the money come from, where does the money go? Water sales is what funds the water department. Personnel costs is a good portion of it, but our debt service that with the water fund is also a good portion of where the money goes. It's related to the SIBS loan that we have, and then the loans that are related to any type of water, obviously water increase or water services. The next is the revenue, and again, it's the 9.3% increase that we're anticipating. And then the $2,000 for water penalties, we increased that line item because it's more in line with what we've actually collected for this fiscal year. And we anticipate that it would stay the same for the next fiscal year. And now we're on to water fund expenditures. For personnel cost, it is going to still be the exact same numbers. If you look down to computer hardware and software, there's a software increase of $56,000 that is associated, or much of it is associated with the AMI system. Chemicals were increased again because the cost of chlorine and other items, we just have to have the additional funds for it. The fuel line item was increased for the same reason, because of the cost of the gas and prices right now. And with the line item for plant operations, maintenance, and repair, we haven't increased it, but we're hoping, or we're looking to be able to pay $20,000 to have the Trinity water well pump pulled. I don't know what that means, but that's what it's for. Forgive me. So if you move forward to interest and sinking, the debt for the next fiscal year did decrease. So you can see within the general fund that our expenses decreased a little bit just because the interest is decreasing throughout the life of the debt. Then to capital improvements. With capital improvements, you'll see an engineering fee of $77,800. That's associated with the 2252 water line. Also included, forgive me, that's being paid for through the ARPA fund. And then also we're using the ARPA money for a public works generator. That's $42,243. The 2252 water line relocation is $585,635 out of the ARPA. The server is $14,000, and chilled air system we're going to be upgrading for $135,000. The remaining portion for the 2252 water line relocation will be paid through the SIB loan, which is the $540,500. After the expenses are paid, we anticipate having an ending fund balance of surplus of $216,703. And I believe I've forgotten something. Bear with me just a second. The water line cost increased significantly over the past, since we got the SIB loan, which is why we're having to use those funds out of the ARPA fund. And that's pretty much it.
Nancy, anything to add?
No, I think she covered it fairly well.
Yeah, she did a great job. Thank you, Christine. Okay. Council, any questions for Christine and/or Nancy or myself before we open up the public hearing?
Yeah,
All right.
Sir?
Go.
Yes, on page 7 of the general fund public works expenditures, I note that we reduced the budget, the Parks Committee budget, under city support services by 300. I'm just wondering what the basis was for that.
Which line item, Kay?
It's Parks Committee under city support services, your item 55226, page 7 of expenditures. About a third of the way down there, so. The variance is 300 less.
Yes.
If I may, so you asked that question when we had when we brought filed it with the secretary, and that was the difference of $300 is what we anticipate Parks and, the Parks Committee using this year based on what they used last year. So
Well, I know that, but
that,
I understand the decrease. I understand what that means. I'm just wondering, I didn't know we expended our entire budget, that's all.
I don't think you did. So based on that,
We didn't use everything we had.
right.
Okay.
Christine?
I was just going to say, basically, it was just bringing it in line with what has been expended for this fiscal year and what would anticipate the next couple of months to be, using prior year to calculate. So that it just decreased because the funds weren't used.
Okay. I'm just,
Any other questions for Christine, Nancy, or myself? Okay, time for a public hearing. And Marissa, you need me to read this verbatim? Or no? Okay, so we will open the public hearing at 6:28 on Thursday, the 11th of August. And we are open. We don't have anybody from the audience, because there is no audience? Did anybody present you with any written comments?
There were no written comments.
Okay. So with no comments, we will go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:29 PM and continue to move on. All right, so let's talk about, we've just gotten briefed on the original proposed budget that we filed with the city secretary. And now let's talk about some adjustments that we as a city staff, and then myself and Lisa as the mayor pro tem, have gone over and made with the adjustment of some salaries. let's start out with salary adjustment is something that we continually do every year in the city of Garden Ridge. We have a tremendous track history with increasing the salaries of our city employees every year. In fact, Nancy backed me up on this, but in the last 20 years, every single year, we've been given an overall increase for our city employees, correct?
Correct, ranging from as low as 2%, but every year there was some percentage increase for employee salaries.
Last year was 3% and some change. This year, because of the increase in inflation and cost of living in the state of Texas, we, across the board, in the proposed budget that we filed, raised everyone's salary by 5%, which is pretty remarkable. So thank you for that, council. The other thing we did last year is we went further to adjust some salaries to do two things. One, to raise the salaries of positions to make them more in line with other municipalities of around 5,000 people or so. And the other reason we did that is because even though the city of Garden Ridge has an extremely low turnover rate for a municipality, we still have turnover because life happens and people take other jobs, other careers, and move on. So one of the things that we have to do in our salary adjustments is also make those salaries for those positions competitive in the open market. For instance, we've got an open assistant city secretary position / communication specialist that we are trying to fill. And we'll get into what we propose for that. So we did some of those salary adjustments for individual positions last year, and some of them we didn't do. We held off to this year, and then some we want to continue to increase to do those two things. One, to bring it in line with what that position actually does for the city of Garden Ridge, and two, to make it competitive so that when life happens, we can seek out people to fill those positions with a very reasonable and competitive annual wage. So, a couple of other things. Salary adjustment isn't just the paycheck. So you go, hey, let's raise the salary $1,200 a year. Well, that's the paycheck coming home, but then we have to talk about the benefits that are provided by the city for that employee in that position. So it's not just the $1,200 just to pick a number, it's what benefits come with that increased salary as well, and that's always just a percentage. So in going through this, you guys at our last meeting on the 25th of July had a change proposal salary sheet. That was what we had at the time, but we were still working as a city staff, as well as myself and Lisa working on some other adjustments. So some jobs and positions that we looked to adjust. The utility foreman, and currently that's Dwayne Scognio. We wanted to increase that salary by a little bit to put it more in line with the Public Works foreman and the Deputy Director of Public Works, get it a little bit closer to that, as well as raise that position's annual salary because of what the utility foreman does and his responsibilities, that position's responsibilities for the city of Garden Ridge. So what we have proposed is the same as your sheet from the 25th of July, going from this year proposed of $53,331 to a flat $55,000, which is roughly 8.3%. So that's the first one. The second adjustment that we made was for our administrative assistant in the police department. The current salary, or I'll just say this year's salary, fiscal '22, of $37,066 is actually about the right amount when you look at other administrative assistants in police departments of a municipality of 5,000 people, roughly around the state of Texas. However, the person that fills that position and what she actually does, Jill, works very hard and efficiently for our police department and for the city of Garden Ridge, because she backfills the front office whenever we need her help, and she frankly is worth more than that. So we proposed to up her salary to from $38,938 this year proposed, with that 5% increase to a flat $42,000. And that's roughly 13%. So those are the first two. A couple more. The Assistant City Secretary position. So you know that's Kat's old position. She has moved on, life happens, and we support her with that and applaud her for her decision. But that position is open, and currently, or before, it was listed at, or currently it's listed at starting salary of $45,000 to $55,000. And that's what's out there on the website right now. We've had a few hits with that, with no overall success. We've had a couple people that say, hey, we want to telework, and that's just not going to work for the Assistant City Secretary position and the Communications Specialist. So what we would like to do is raise that basically $1,200 over the year, and it's not just $1,200, it's a little bit more, but it's the percentage of benefits as well, to a flat $60,000. So now if we approve that, if you approve that, we can advertise that position at starting minimum at $50,000 up to $60,000, rather than 45 to 55. Maybe we get some more hits with 50 to 60. So, and that's based on the responsibilities of that position. We think that that is a competitive salary compared to other cities. And we need to fill that position because Marissa is doing it all, so she's very swamped. So that's our proposal there. It's about a 7.1% increase. The next one that we were looking at, but we didn't adjust from the 25th, before the 25th of July, is our librarian. So when you look at what librarians for a 5,000 people roughly municipality around Texas make, it's actually a fairly competitive wage that we have right now proposed for, with the 5% increase for fiscal '23. However, let's talk about our librarian. She's wonderful. She is extremely busy. She is a department head. She has an employee that's currently a part-time employee. She also has many volunteers. Hundreds and thousands of people come through the library each year, and it's Linda Crosland, and she comes up with things like a stuffed animal sleepover for the kids, trunk or treat. The list goes on and on. May the 4th be with you, right? So what we propose is to raise her salary to give her an increase from currently planned of $53,903 to $59,293. Continuing on, two more positions we want to talk about. Let's talk about the city secretary position. We all, when you look at competitive salaries and just what a position description reads for a city secretary around Texas, it basically, you come up with agenda, you get the minutes done, and not much more than that. That is a small part of what our city secretary does for us. So she, the list goes on and on of all of the things that she, with Nancy and the rest of the team, do together. She's a department head. She has employees that work directly for her, three positions, and it would be very difficult for us to get it done without Marissa. So what we propose is to raise the city secretary's salary from Currently, it's 75,588 to 83,147. It's basically a straight 10% increase from what is currently proposed. All right, the last position I want to talk about is our administrator. So let's talk about our administrator. And when you look at, it's an administrator because we're not a home rule city, which would, and we increase in size, would be a city manager getting up to, you know, San Antonio or the city of Schertz. Currently, it's city administrator because that's what we're supposed to call it. But look at what our city administrator does for our city, day in, day out. We nicknamed her the General, earlier this summer, just based on everything she was doing to put the whole celebration of the 4th of July and the 50th anniversary celebration together. That's one little thing. And that's completely extra upon what her job, her position description is and what she does. So she runs the day-to-day operations, week-to-week and month-to-month operations of the city of Garden Ridge, 32 positions, and keeps it rolling. She also manages the city council. And it takes all of us, but it would be difficult, just like I said with Marissa, to do this without Nancy. She has over 20 years' experience just in this position. She's our history, she's our corporate knowledge. Look at the network that she brings and experience she brings to the position. We didn't raise the administrator's salary last year, other than the standard 3%, because she and I both agreed that last year wasn't the time to do that. And for perception reasons and whatnot, we decided to leave the administrator's salary where it was for last year. I want to adjust that this year. So going from 128,000 proposed to 140,000. That's roughly a 14% increase for this year. She's worth it, and I think 140,000 is right where we need to be with that. So, because she's quite literally irreplaceable. All right, so those are the proposals for the salary adjustments. Christine, Nancy, did I miss any? Okay, what that does with the adjustments in salary, the paychecks, plus the benefits, from the original proposed budget, we had $31,402 roughly and change that were carried over. What this would do is reduce that to $1,755. And we zero out the water budget. And remember, these don't just come out, the salaries don't come out of just the general fund. It's a percentage out of the general fund and the water fund, and we work those percentages to work it correctly. So we zero out the water fund, which I like, and we have a little bit of carryover with into the general fund, but we are paying our employees on our salaries that they deserve and that are competitive around this region for our municipality. Lisa, what am I missing?
I think you covered it all.
Okay. So, and remember, it's a 5% increase across the board for everybody, which when you talk to other municipalities, they're not doing. So, with that, and it's not just, I mean, hopefully, based on what you guys just approved for our proposed tax rate for the public hearing later, we'll bring in plenty of money to keep things rolling and have a little bit extra to play with, or to work on some strategic issues and whatnot. So, I'll open it up for discussion.
I'm all for it. I've worked with you guys a very short period of time, and I have to say, we have our stuff together here. And I'm all about paying, whatever it takes within reason to keep you guys on board, and I hope you guys stay on for a long time. I mean, I look at the 50th anniversary, and I did not see one little glitch, and there probably were, But I don't think I've ever seen, and I've been a part of a lot of events, and I do not think I've ever seen any event come together as perfectly as that did. So, but I'm all about, I mean, that's, as an employer, I'm all about top dollar for top talent, so.
Thanks, Kelly. Lisa?
I'm for all this as well. I mean, I hope as a city, we're always evaluating our positions and our employees, and our salaries are never static, that this is something that we look at every year.
Thanks, Lisa. Jesse?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we have great talent here, and we need to, recognize them within budget, and I think we're doing that. I think your proposal meets that criteria. So, yeah, I'm in favor of them.
Thank you. Kay?
I like that there was some comparison and, if you will, justification in a way for surrounding salaries, surrounding cities and so on. So it doesn't look like we're arbitrarily just paying people. I think it's a good solid basis for the increases in the salaries. The increases and, I'm not speaking clearly, and the salaries.
Okay. With that, Nancy, Christine, anything else to add?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, so you've heard the discussions and the adjustments made. So we are ready then, I would think, to go into adoption of the fiscal year 2023 budgets. These are all individual motions and seconds, discussions, and votes, because we have the general fund, the water O&M fund, the interest and sinking fund, and the capital improvements fund that we have to approve. The way we need to word this, if you are so inclined, is basically read verbatim the resolution, starting with "I move to approve resolution number 490, blah, 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 blah," for the first one, and then you would say, to include the salary amendments as presented, which would approve what we just talked about. So to include the salary amendments, adjustments as presented. So, with that in mind, can I have a motion to approve the first resolution for the general fund budget for fiscal year 2023?
I move to approve resolution number 490-082022, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Garden Ridge, Texas, approving fiscal year 2023 general fund budget for the period of October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2023, to include the proposed salary and budget adjustments presented this evening.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? I'll call it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. On to item 3.2, resolution number 491-082022, to approve the Water Company Operations and Maintenance Fund budget for fiscal year 2023. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve resolution number 491-082022, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Garden Ridge, Texas, approving fiscal year 2023 Water Company Operation and Maintenance Fund budget for the period of October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2023, to include the proposed or reviewed salary adjustments as presented earlier.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? I'll call it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. For these next two, because salaries don't come out of the interest and sinking fund or capital improvements fund, you can just read these two verbatim. So do I have a motion to approve for the fiscal year, the budget for the fiscal year 2023 interest and sinking fund?
I move to approve resolution number 492-082022, a resolution of the City of Garden Ridge, or the City Council of the City of Garden Ridge, Texas, approving fiscal year 2023 interest and sinking fund budget for the period of October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2023.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? Call it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? The motion passes unanimously. Can I have, moving on to item number 3.4, can I have a motion to approve the capital improvements fund budget for fiscal year 2023?
I move to approve the resolution number 493-082022, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Garden Ridge, Texas, approving fiscal year 2023 capital improvements fund budget for the period of October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2023.
Well done. I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? Call it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All of our budgets are approved. Good job, council. Moving on to item number 5C, ratify the property tax decrease of $14,022 as reflected in the fiscal year 2023 budgets for the City of Garden Ridge General Fund and Interest and Sinking Fund. This is just a further delineation of what we've been discussing all along, correct, Christine and Nancy? Okay? Can I get a motion?
I move to ratify the property tax decrease of $14,022 as reflected in the fiscal year 2023 budgets of the City of Garden Ridge General Fund and Interest and Sinking Fund, period.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? Call it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. On to item number 5D, review the tax rate adoption process and schedule. Nancy?
Okay, we have concluded the budget process. We will have to publish a public notice concerning the public hearing on the proposed tax rate, which will be held October 29th, 2022, 6 p.m. August. Sorry, I'm a few months ahead, aren't I? August 29th, 6 p.m. here in council chambers. And we are proposing that evening also to be able to adopt that budget after the public hearing. And at that point, then we would be complete with the tax rate process as well.
All right, thank you, Nancy. Any
Welcome.
questions for Nancy? All right, it's August, not October. Okay, that concludes item number 5. Open up to item number 6, citizen comment period. We don't have anybody in the audience, so we'll close number 6. Item number 7, we are adjourned at 6:53 p.m. on Thursday, the 11th. Thank you very much.
There be no further business.